Hey, good morning, everybody. It's June 27th, 2024, and we are live with World Gone Wild. Now, I moved back the time to an hour after or before we did it. We normally have the show. Did that on purpose because YouTube algorithms are playing games with the channel. And so I looked for a different time slot, the original time slot that we used to do the show at for many years. And why did we do this? Well, YouTube, as you guys have seen, cut our viewership in half compared to a few years ago. And that's all algorithms and basically a sustained attack on the channel. I think most people can agree the work here has gotten better over the years instead of worse. So one of two things is happening. Either we're in the wrong time slot and or YouTube is essentially unsubscribing people from the channel. And so if you're a new subscriber, please check back because YouTube will literally unsubscribe you. And if you're not consistently thinking about the channel or showing up every day, you will forget about the channel if you're a new subscriber. Most of you that show up every day have been coming here for years, and I love you. You guys are awesome and amazing for being consistent. This has now become like a family, a group of us getting together in a safe place to be able to talk about where the world is headed, where it's been, and what's going on right now. So I appreciate all of you. And so we need to try to shore up the channel, make sure that it's all good. We don't have to worry about the future. I don't really think it's about the time slot, but we're going to give it a try for at least a couple weeks. And then at some point, if that doesn't work, we're probably just going to hop over onto the backup channel altogether for our daily live shows, because maybe the algorithms won't be so oppressive over there. Now, why does all this matter? Well, the large morning viewership is important because it forces the algorithms to recognize the video. So large live viewership equals recommended video, right? Now, what else is going on? Well, I got a bunch of updates for you guys today. The powers that be are now admitting to everything that they denied before about the jibber jabber. And I wasn't really expecting them to do this. I'm actually shocked. I never thought they would start admitting to all this stuff. So we're going to get into that today. Or there's also the very first person that had an implant with the Neuralink. We're going to look at that person in an interview, a live interview with that person, and see what's up with that. Of course, the live implant of Neuralink is the segue into consciousness transfer, or what they will tell us is consciousness transfer. And what will happen at that point, it will be that the devil will offer everlasting life in this world, and people will take the bait, not knowing or not believing that Jesus is returning. And many, many people will be deceived and enter the gates of hell. So what's going on with all this? Well, let's get back to this disclosure, this mass disclosure that's happening. Kansas is actually suing Pfizer. The National Guard is also admitting that this particular soldier that you see on your screen, this woman here, perfectly healthy, that she is suffering from heart issues from the jab, and on and on and on. So we're going to start to break some of this down today. Now, this is news to Idaho. Army linked soldier's heart condition to the jibber jabber. We're just going to use code language. I mean, at this point, they can come back through and wipe away any video. So we're going to try to be a little bit careful with this stuff. We're just reading headlines. This is to Idaho News. This is what they're saying, not we're saying. We're just reading a news headline. And she, perfectly healthy individual, and all of a sudden she came down with heart problems. She's in the prime of her life. And we're told that, we were told during the pandemic that, even if you're healthy, you should get this, right? There was no delineation. Many people were forced to do this. And here we now have a disclosure about the truth as the U.S. Army and National Guard acknowledged this soldier's debilitating heart condition is connected to the VidCo-19 smack the nation. Unbelievable. Now, when have you ever heard of the National Guard saying this or admitting to this. So this is pretty serious. This is good news for us because many of us who said this was the case will now be vindicated. And most importantly, all of this was ever about was helping people, wasn't it? All this was about was helping people not make choices and decisions that could harm them. Let's keep reading. Army National Guard Specialist Carolyn Stanzik, 24, had reportedly racked up $70,000 in medical debt after being hospitalized for heart complications. She suffered her first heart attack after receiving the you-know-what. Now, this saddens me because many people felt like they were cornered. They had to make choices and decisions about their careers and all the things we've talked about. And still to this day, people do not make the connection to the person who made this. And yes, there was a patent on this, but it had to be made by a particular president. And it's not about letting Biden off the hook because he's doing the same thing and worse, but people cannot come to terms with what happened. And that still saddens me to my core because that means people are still in the right-left paradigm and they'll do anything that they can to defend their team. And this is why nothing ever gets done, because we don't hold our conservatives accountable. And this was a big mistake by Trump to allow this to happen because of situations like this. Let's keep reading here. An Army memo about Stanzik's situation acquired by Harridge shows she had been diagnosed with a postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So her heart started beating uncontrollably and irregularly. And they call it POTS. The condition is called POTS for short. Stanzik described having intense adverse reactions to the jibber jabber, including high heart rate, neuropathic pain, and difficulty breathing. Now, we told you early on about this neuropathic pain that was caused. Well, we'll just say it, neuropathic pain. We were talking about this, about the central nervous system, weren't we? Now, on tomorrow's show, and because this relates to this, so I'm going to give tomorrow's show a mention. On tomorrow's show, we're going to be decoding Sweet Tooth. And in that particular TV series, it's also about neuropathic pain and neurological and neuropathic side effects from a particular virus and cure in the TV series. So they're gaslighting us at this point, aren't they? Well, let's keep reading here. She was released from active duty in 2022, costing her medical benefits and salary. So you get sick and they literally give you no other options. They take away your benefits and these people are left with nothing. Unbelievable. So some people are trying to help this woman finally, but at what cost? The damage is already done. Here's another image of her here, laying in bed with all these tubes attached to her. Could you imagine going through something like this and having to deal with this? $70,000 of medical debt, and no one wants to admit it. Now, of course, I'm sure this woman has regrets about this. I'm sure there were people in her life that tried to warn her about this, but imagine someone whose their whole dream in life was to join the National Guard, and they're told they have to do this in order to stay a National Guard member. And so they just do it. Now, Kansas just announced that they are suing Pfizer. Why? Okay, now we got to be careful here because of myocarditis and pregnancy issues. Now, we're not saying pregnancy issues. This is what is being reported. Kansas is suing for these two reasons. I want to be clear here. And they say that that was caused by the you-know-what. Wow. Now, the reason why I'm being sensitive about this is because I just had a video removed from YouTube from the TV series Stargate SG-1. And it was a particular episode where the team in Stargate SG-1 went through the ring, went through the portal, and landed on a planet where they were genociding the people by taking away their ability to become pregnant with the jibber jabber. And simply showing the clips, I didn't even have any commentary on that video, it was just the clips from the episode. It was removed from YouTube. Now, they did not give me a strike, but they removed it under misinformation. So this is why we have to be careful about this, because there's no use for us to do that. If we start talking and just saying whatever we want, the channel goes away. Now we don't reach anybody. This is why we have to be careful. You can call it self-censorship, but it's just a strategy to stay relevant, to stay here on YouTube and to be able to reach people. Okay. And that's the way I look at it. So the state of Kansas has sued Pfizer, accusing it of misleading the public about its jibber jabber by making false claims about its effectiveness. They filed a lawsuit, and the Attorney General claims Pfizer misled Kansas residents by claiming that the jibber jabber was safe and hid evidence of its link to myocarditis and pregnancy issues. So what does all this mean? Again, this is gaslighting. And so obviously this is going to freak a lot of people out. And the last thing they're going to do is concede that they were wrong about this, because they're in a crisis, right? They're in crisis mode with whatever health problems that they're having. They're probably having problems getting help for their health issues, right? And so they're just dealing with that. Can't really expect these people to do an about face and call up all their conspiracy theorist friends and say, we're really sorry, you were right. We live in a different world now, don't we? Everyone hedges. They're in competition with one another. They don't ever want to admit when they're wrong. And so it's very sad, but people kind of make their own bed, don't they? Now let's keep reading here. So this is their statement. Pfizer made multiple misleading statements to deceive the public about its smack the nation at a time when Americans needed the truth. And so, wow, a state is actually suing them. And that's what's going on. I'll put links to all these stories for you guys so you can take a look at this on your own time if you're interested in more of this. But here's some more reporting here as well. This is News Nation. So all this disclosure is happening right now, and you have to ask yourself why. Why now? Why now are they admitting to all this? Here in this article, they're saying that the censorship is what drove the hesitancy. It says, Smack the Nation effects censorship drove the hesitancy. Within 20 minutes of getting his first shot, let's make this bigger for you guys. I'll be back in the chat in a minute. I just want to get through some of these headlines about this disclosure that's happening right now. Very, very important. This guy, Sean, knew something was wrong. And this is a lot of people's experience, wasn't it? But they have nowhere to turn, nowhere to go, because the mainstream is not telling them that this is supposed to happen, right? The experienced nurse practitioner felt numbness in his arm, which spread to his face. So those are neurological symptoms, right? Nerve damage. And it got worse after the second one. I went from being 100% healthy, fully functioning nurse to complete downward spiral. He is one of thousands in the U.S. who have, or believe they have, suffered severe side effects. It's not a belief, it's a fact, he told News Nation. Making matters worse, he says, is the cultural denial within the healthcare system about just how many people have suffered from life-altering effects. I thought that all my pro-jibber-jabber colleagues would be there to lift me up and help me, and in fact, they're the ones who turned around, dismissed, denied, censored, and buried me. Unbelievable. So here's a case study of a person that worked in the medical industry that had all the effects of this and got no help. Why? Because of the control of information. Let's be honest here. Let's boil all this down. It is the control of information and people living in fear about their jobs instead of doing what's best for people, right? Because the pharmaceutical companies are so powerful. Now, thanks to the subscriber who told me about News Nation, I was not aware of them. So I wanted to do a little bit of research because I don't want to start reporting onion sites, on this channel. And I did look up their credibility. Now, not that I believe this particular site about the credibility of News Nation, but what this does is it gives me an idea of how how the mainstream media views this site, so I can know whether to be careful or not careful when I'm reporting from News Nation. Apparently, News Nation has become a huge news outlet, so we'll probably be covering more stories from News Nation. And as you can see here, it's pretty high in terms of factual reporting. They're rated high in factual reporting, and they are least biased. So they don't go right or left, according to this. So there shouldn't be too many fact check articles that would essentially amount to landmines for this channel, because every time that happens, we get a strike and could lose our channel. So News Nation is supposed to be neutral. So that's good information. Let me check in with you guys. We'll get into some more of these stories today. Apparently, they're looking at releasing Julian Assange. And so we're going to get into that as well today, and as well as the Neuralink patient being interviewed, and see what's up with him. So, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Rebecca, for moderating. Artist known as Lisa, Patricia, Betty, Santos. So yes, if you're just tuning in, we're going to stay at this earlier time. Apparently, more people are able to tune in at this time because our channel took a huge hit. We went from 1,000 people a day on the live shows to less than 400. And so it's that when that happens, it's time to make a change, right? So this is why we're live a little bit earlier today. Now, what else is going on? Well, even the hard left is joining in on this jibber jabber disclosure of the truth about all this. And I am not a Chris Cuomo fan. He is hard left. But this guy was shaming people during the pandemic. Remember this? For not getting the jibber jabber or for not wearing masks. And now he is seeming to do an about face. I don't believe that it's authentic at all. And I'll tell you the strategy that I think is going on here. But he is doing a hard about face. And it's funny because he does put the blame on Trump, but in a different way. Not because he made the jibber jabber, but now they're trying to depict him as basically working with the pharmaceutical companies to make a bunch of money. And that is absolutely the truth. But coming out of Chris Cuomo's mouth, all that's going to do is get the people who support Trump to not believe Chris Cuomo, right? You see how this is wrong? Because what you have is a message. You have a message that's being spoken by the wrong side, and then the other side opposes the message. So, of course, the people that support Trump are going to go against this. They're going to say, what are you talking about? And then more people on the right are going to go out and get the jibber jabber just because Chris Cuomo is saying that Trump is bad for making it. You see the problem here with the right-left paradigm? This is why you have to stand centered. You have to stand centered on the rock of Jesus Christ. You can't listen to these people and be pulled this way and that way. Okay? And so let's look at this podcast here. Chris Cuomo does this podcast. Now, the podcast is about 80% truth. And I'll put a link to this because you could actually play this. And it's about 80% truth and 20% lies because he is still firmly entrenched in the right-left paradigm as well. But now all of a sudden he wants to come out and say something about the jibber jabber. And all this is going to do is oppose the people who want to vote for Trump, and they're going to do what Trump wants even more. You see how this works? It's kind of hard to explain, but I think most of you that come here every day know what this is about. So what is the point to all this? Why are they admitting to this now? Let me give you my thoughts. I believe this is fear, gaslighting, also to solidify the right-left paradigm, as I just explained, because people are starting to wake up and realize they've been tricked. And this kind of fear, once you start getting these symptoms, this is the kind of stuff that the Bible talks about will cause men's hearts to fail from fear. So that's where all this is headed. There's going to be many, many more people dropping out, I believe, because of understanding the truth about what they've done to themselves based on the original fear when they could have avoided this altogether. Now, let's get into some of these other stories today, you guys. This is nuts. So, nuclear power is now connected to the development of artificial intelligence. This new technology for nuclear power could help fuel the AI revolution. This is here, it's not going away. We already heard Trump's comments on artificial intelligence saying that we need to master it and get in front of it and turn it for good. But you and I know that artificial intelligence is inherently evil and it cannot be used for good. There's no such thing as good artificial intelligence because it's a tool of the enemy to hide behind the curtain of the things that he's really doing to control this world. So, we talked yesterday about nuclear power and the dark water inside the cooling tanks, didn't we? That was a re-upload. And I showed you guys the movie Deadpool. And we saw that the nuclear twin towers were full of this dark water. And it was a portal for evil spirits to come through. And so there's something about the water, the heavy water inside these nuclear reactors that will segue into the fuel for artificial intelligence. And that's why this next story makes sense. It fits right into what we were talking about yesterday in the re-upload. Now, sometimes I don't plan the re-upload. I just look through and God does the rest. And then the miracle happens where the re-upload actually applies to exactly what's happening right now. And that's when I just shake my head and I go, wow, God, you're amazing. Because you saw this even though I'm not seeing it. I'm just trying to hold on. God's got the steering wheel. And here we are with a story that relates directly to what's happening and what happened in that decode that we did yesterday. New technology for nuclear power could help fuel AI revolution. Hundreds of billions of milk cartons they're talking about get thrown out every year. And of course, we know what the milk cartons represent. Milk is human sacrifice. I'm going to try to play this video here because this is probably important. So essentially what they're telling us is that human sacrifice will fuel the reactors and artificial intelligence. And that's just chilling. Casey, what are you talking about? That milk is human sacrifice. Well, milk is Molech. Molech is MLK. Short version, we know that in ancient languages, there were no vowels. It was only consonants. MLK, MLC, milk. Let's see if we can play this video, you guys.
Get thrown out every year. And a center in Thailand can recycle thousands per day into building materials. The cartons get turned into bricks or pressed into roofing.
So, bricks, roofing, they're using the milk cartons to build, literally off of the sacrifice. Let's try to play a little bit more of this.
These kinds of boxes are really hard to recycle because of the layered mix of aluminum, plastic, and paper. But one of the world's largest producers is trying to make that easier. A Swiss-based company called Tetra Pak made 192 billion food and beverage containers in 2021. It started programs to keep a portion of those out of landfills. Here in Thailand, the company has set up collection drives at some schools.
Think about the irony of that. Thailand, trafficking.
การรีไซเคิลนะคะมีความสำคัญมากเลยค่ะเพราะว่าจากที่กล่องนมนะคะจะบอกว่าไม่ได้ไปทำอะไรเลยแบบว่าพอกินเสร็จก็ทิ้งอย่างนั้น
And some of the final building materials help rebuild homes for victims of natural disasters.
เราไปทำหลังคาให้กับผู้ที่ยากไร้อะค่ะเขาจะได้มีบ้านอยู่
So can the world's largest carton manufacturer make a difference in reclaiming the waste it makes? We've in schools in a country.
Let's fast forward to the part that talks about nuclear reactors. May not be in this video. Sometimes they'll play these videos and they have nothing to do with what they're talking about. So let's try to fast forward through this here.
recycled on their own, but many recycling facilities don't have machines that can process them all at once. About 75% of a carton is paper, which provides structure. Polyethylene plastic makes up 20% and helps seal the packaging. The last 5% is aluminum. The filter is finer than the last. A friendly plant in Jeopardy. It's called Paleo for short.
So I'll put a link to this video and this story, but let's read through this. It says, ancient alchemists once tried transmuting elements, toying with metals like lead to create gold. Pursuit of quick riches has been since abandoned, but scientists are now using a similar idea to level up one of the world's most promising energy sources. Transmutex. Wow, transmutate. So this is all alchemy, isn't it? A Swiss startup is pioneering a new method for nuclear transmutation that not only destroys nuclear waste, but can also turn it back into energy. Scientists have long considered nuclear energy one of the cleanest and most reliable forms of energy production. However, the waste it creates must be stored in deep geological repositories for thousands of years to prevent the environment from being exposed to harmful radiation. Transmutex says its technology can transmute 99% of the world's high-level radioactive waste into new fuel. NAGRA, the Swiss agency that manages nuclear waste, validated the claim as a theoretical possibility in a letter to the company last month. Switzerland, however, has pivoted away from nuclear energy in part because of the safety concerns made apparent by Japan's Fukushima disaster in 2011. But such disasters are rare, and many other countries like the US and Saudi Arabia, for example, are betting on nuclear energy as the most efficient and sustainable option. Look at how we've pivoted. Gosh, in 20 years, they've decided nuclear is the way to go, whereas before that was not the case. Wow. A new fuel cycle for nuclear power. High energy subatomic particles known as neutrons is what they're using to destroy highly radioactive nuclear waste. So this is what they're using to do this. This system can also turn that waste into fuel that can be used again in nuclear power plants. So essentially, they're recycling the nuclear waste. Wow. So this is where we're all headed, and all of this is going to fuel artificial intelligence. AI firms on the lookout for energy solutions. The AI industry is looking for new, more reliable power sources as the race to develop artificial intelligence ramps up. I would say that the Bitcoin mining will segue into artificial intelligence development is what I'm thinking, because Bitcoin mining also takes lots and lots of energy. So maybe the whole point of Bitcoin mining was a precursor to what they already knew they were going to do with artificial intelligence. They had to set up the infrastructure, which is the Bitcoin miners, and now it's all there, and now all they need is an energy source. Unbelievable. Let's keep reading here. Energy, not compute, will be the number one bottleneck to AI progress, is what Zuckerberg says, referring to the computational resources needed to train and run AI models. So yeah, that would be an easy segue from Bitcoin mining to this, to artificial intelligence development. Oklo, a startup backed up by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, is betting on generating nuclear power through small nuclear reactors. So now you see the beginning from the end. The whole reason why Trump has positioned himself to build all these reactors. Are you ready for this? And why Bill Gates is building a brand new reactor is because they already know that this will be the fuel for artificial intelligence. Do you see how the right and the left work together now? Is it starting to settle in and make sense? Is it starting to take away some of the emotion of when you feel like Trump's being attacked? I hope that you are starting to wake up. This is a long con, they call this, from the start to the finish. The nuclear reactors will fuel the artificial intelligence, which was the infrastructure from the Bitcoin mining, will be used to segue into artificial intelligence development, all that computing power and energy. And they need nuclear reactors to do it. And this is why we're going back to nuclear reactors. And now it all begins to make sense. And unless you see things from the beginning to the end, you will never believe what I'm telling you. But now it starts to settle in. Now you're starting to understand and believe it. So this is going on behind the scenes in plain sight. Let's keep reading here. See what this is about. AI requires massive industrial scale amounts of energy. Only nuclear power will be able to supply this massive energy demand in a reliable manner. So to think that Trump wanting to make nuclear reactors has absolutely nothing to do with artificial intelligence development would be naive. It would be naive to believe that, okay? It would be naive. And to believe that Bill Gates and his new nuclear reactor has nothing to do with Trump would be naive. He was a tenant at Trump World Tower at one time in the 1990s, I believe, in early 2000s. Bill Gates. Let's keep reading here. With a technology like Transmutex, the U.S. can build classic uranium-based nuclear plants, such as the Vogtle plant in Georgia, without being burdened with high-level nuclear waste for hundreds or thousands of years. So they say, right? I have no way to believe these people or know if they're telling us the truth, because they told us all about the truth about nuclear power before Fukushima happened, didn't they? And yet it still happened. Now, let's keep going with this. Assange, Julian Assange, is expected to be released. Now, here's the irony of this. This is ABC News. The irony of this is our own conservative President Trump couldn't get this done. Couldn't release a person who never should have been in jail. But then we get Biden working a deal to get Assange released? What reality are we living in? Welcome to Backwards World. Now, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this before, well, actually, I should read this article first so we can get what they're telling us are the facts here. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange expected to plead guilty and avoid further prison time as part of a deal with the U.S. Justice Department has reached an agreement with Julian Assange to plead guilty to a single felony count of conspiring to unlawfully obtain and disseminate classified information in a deal that is expected to resolve the WikiLeaks founder's charges in the U.S. with no further time in prison, according to court documents. It will bring an end to the years-long battle by the U.S. to prosecute Assange over the publishing of classified military and diplomatic materials that were leaked by former American soldier Chelsea Manning. What kind of reality do we live in where Assange got released under the Biden presidency? Let's see if this video has anything in it. Okay, this is just same thing we just read, essentially. Now, what are your guys' thoughts on this? Do you see how everything's getting swapped around? Do you see how we have doppelgangers of truth? Truth coming out of the mouths of people it's not supposed to come out of, which muddies the water, the swamp water. This is unreal. Released June 24th. So yeah, he's already been released. Wow. Okay, I'm in the chat. Yeah, like the Illuminati card message. There was a Julian Assange Illuminati card. Makes you wonder if it's not just another psyop and if he is actually not been released, says Eminem. I would agree with you there. It's possible. Clown world, says Marion. Now, what else is going on? Well, I want to give you guys a quick update on what's going on over in the Ukraine. More clown world, as you put it, as the Biden administration is deploying military contractors to the Ukraine So things are escalating. We now have soldiers. They're calling them military contractors, but essentially they're the same thing. Boots on the ground to deploy to the Ukraine. And how is Putin responding? He's responding with possible North Korean troops that will aid Russia in the Ukraine. So the proxy war has escalated. Now, I understand that every week there's going to be new information on this Ukraine debacle, but it is escalating to some sort of finality. I anticipate full-scale combat. I don't expect it to go away when Trump wins the presidency, but we'll see, I guess. But here's what's going on. North Korean troops will become cannon fodder if they aid Russia in Ukraine. So they haven't yet, but this is what he's coming back with in terms of that. Now, let's get to this last story for today. This Neuralink patient says that implant has given him incredible gaming skills. This is the first time that we're able to check in with this patient. Here's the guy right here. Look at what he's wearing on his shirt. Literal skull. And it looks like some kind of either Chinese or Japanese writing. I can't tell. But this just goes to show you this is all about the skull, right? Skull implant. Let's read this. Now, before we read this, understand that Neuralink is the first step in consciousness transfer, or so they'll tell us. And this is how the devil will offer everlasting life, or what will appear to be everlasting life. But what he doesn't know is that there will be a new heaven and a new earth. Well, he knows this, but most people will not believe it. And that all of this is going to be wiped away. So it doesn't matter if you live another 20 years or 50 years. At some point, it will all be gone. And all the people who invested in this world, instead of keeping their eyes fixed on heaven, will be gone forever as well. Let's read this guy, Noland. Now, isn't it interesting? Let's make this bigger. Let's break down this Noland guy. Ready for this? Noland. Well, the last three letters of his first name spell DNA backwards. So you have DNA, and then his first three letters is Nol, N-O-L. I guess you could say Noel or God, or there's different ways to decipher the first three letters. Noel's, of course, the false god. So you've got a false god and DNA in this guy's first name. And he became the first patient to receive a brain computer chip implanted by Elon Musk's startup Neuralink. 29 years old, lost control over his limbs after a diving accident 8 years ago, but has since gained the ability to move a cursor with his mind alone, thanks to the coin battery-sized device implanted in his skull and brain. The tech isn't without perils. It is also has the potential to profoundly impact the lives of people like Arbaugh, giving them novel ways to live enriched and independent lives. So eventually, where this is all headed as well, is possibly giving him the ability to walk, which of course will be blasphemy, because Jesus was the one who healed people to where they could throw their crutches away. But this Elon Musk, Elon, E-L-O-N, kind of sounds like Noland, doesn't it? Elon's name is almost in the word Nolan as well. So let's keep reading here. According to the latest media post on Joe Rogan Experience, Musk is a frequent flyer on the show, and apparently the upgrade is giving Arbaugh sick new gaming skills. So of course they're going to make it look like something very innocent, gaming, right? To bring your guard down so that you don't think this is a serious thing. I basically have an aim bot in my head, he says. He told the controversial podcaster, referring to bots that automatically lock onto their opponents in video games, giving cheating players seemingly superhuman reflexes. They'll probably have different leagues for people like me because it's just not fair. Wow. So apparently this guy was on Joe Rogan. Let's see if there's any video of this. Apparently not. But you guys can go look this up if you wanted to watch this interview. Wow. This is just chilling where the world is headed, isn't it? Just chilling. So this is him on Joe Rogan, apparently. So let me go back into the chat. You guys know tomorrow we will be decoding the last episode of the TV series Sweet Tooth. And that's all about hybrid blood taking over the world, a virus, a cure, pretty much the pandemic. And I'm also going to be giving you my thoughts on how maybe dragons helped cartographers map the earth before we had aerial flight. So I found this weird pattern of dragons appearing on old cartography maps. So we're going to look at some of those tomorrow. And of course, we know that Satan is the prince of the power of the air. And you have to wonder if part of that power of the air were dragons flying above us at some point in history, which of course would have had a bird's eye view of the ground below to help cartographers map the earth. So we'll get into some of that tomorrow as well. All right, I'm back in the chat, you guys. So Rebecca has linked the backup channel, which is where we may be doing our live shows at some point. But we're going to try this for a bit. Looks like about the same group size today, but we're going to try this for a bit at this new time. So thanks everybody for showing up a little bit earlier. All right. Good morning. Hello. Quetzalcoatl, absolutely, Bill. Quetzalcoatl was probably the winged serpent, the dragon. Some dragons didn't fly. Vamanas. All right. You guys have any questions before we end the show today? So a lot of you appreciate the time change. That's awesome. I know you guys have things to do. The day goes on. And honestly, there's probably other things you're watching in the morning, or maybe you're at work already, you know, so the earlier time seems to be better for a lot of people. Yes, I believe the Great Tribulation is starting soon as well, Matt. That's my personal belief. All right. Who are Elon's parents? Asked Jamie. That's a good question. Are they still alive? Morning, Mike. So a lot of you like this time better. That's awesome. They cast the sound around your head and the AI uses reaction study to fake mind read. Okay. Cool. A lot of you like this time better. Awesome. Cool. Eric's a stream jumper. I can see your comment. Established presence. All right. Okay, I'll let you guys go, and we'll be back tomorrow with Sweet Tooth. And essentially what I did is I skipped to the last episode. Many of you told me, go ahead and skip to the last episode. I could not watch that whole series. Hybrid children running around in weird situations. I just couldn't. I'm sorry, you guys. I do have my own limits. But I did do the last episode in great detail. So I will edit that all together today and get the show ready for tomorrow. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.